The Todd Shapiro Show. Canada Laughs, SiriusXM 168.
We had Hannibal Buress on. We had Maria Bamford on. We've had some big, and there's a reason why we keep getting these big names that make this show appear way bigger than it probably is. And we have one man to thank. Thank you for Bruce Hills for showing up today, the president of Just for Laughs. Dude, this is great.
Well, it's all downhill from here. And by the way, I just want to say this: you're a great host and entrepreneur. I've never heard more sponsors and advertisers on a SiriusXM
Just
show.
for Laughs, the festival doesn't have as many sponsors as Todd.
You know what? I need to know what you do during the rest of your day because we might need to hire you.
You know what? I'll be honest. I'm a much better business person than I am a radio show. So I would love to.
I'm not sure about that, but we'll see in a moment. But is there a gift basket that I leave with? Because I like a number of those things.
Do we have
vodka.
anything? Actually, I could give you Veritas vodka. I have some in my car, I think. Sorry, but they're not open, of course.
The car that you didn't pay for either.
I didn't pay for that car. I didn't pay for the car.
The Veritas vodka was the chosen drink of the TIFF Lounge a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
We did a lounge. We had all the sponsors. So we had the beer, we had the wine, we had the vodka, and we had a party.
It was great.
We had a big party
every night. Yeah.
I know you guys at JFL. There's a lot going on. Is it a party every night for you, or is it all work while this goes on?
Listen, I have to get bed at a reasonable time because I got work to do the next day. No, but listen, this is really about putting on a party for the city and putting on a party for the comics. What Just for Laughs has been renowned for doing, I hope, is providing a great, platform, but also a great time. We want them not only to have a great comedy experience, but we hope it helps their career, but also we want them to enjoy the city they're in. This is a great city to take advantage of and exploit because there's so much, from a baseball game, like Joe Coy's, I'm about to join Joe Coy in a couple of hours to throw out the first pitch.
Is he throwing out the first pitch?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Oh man, that's so great for Joe. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
listen,
crazy.
This city is great to when Montreal is a great added value, but Toronto too. People are happy to be here, especially today. The weather was phenomenal and so much to do, lots to eat, good hang. They love it.
The festival's really, JFL 42's really taken root and hold in Toronto too. It's been fun to watch. Even as a comedian, just watching it, you always want your city to have a really good comedy festival. And I think that's the one thing that was missing in Toronto before JFL 42 came in and set up shop.
Oh, well, thank you.
And it's really worked, and people go to the shows. The shows are packed, very popular. I mean, the big names obviously coming in don't hurt, right? So, but I mean, lots of good Canadian acts too, like all kinds of smaller shows from everywhere from the cabaret space, a comedy bar, which is a tight little space, maybe 40 people, 50 people, all the way to the Sony Center, which is, I think, 3,000.
And this year we also have Joe Rogan.
Scotiabank,
with a couple tickets left there too, not many. And that's, it's really about, the success of JFL 42 is really about, I think, two things. One, creating an event that the city feels is theirs, right? Not just something from Montreal we plopped here and just said, hey, look what we do in Montreal, we'll just give you the same thing. So I feel the city owns it. I hope the comics feel that they have a role in that festival. And the other thing I think is this pass, which I think gives comedy fans an efficient manner in which to take some chances, to go see some people that aren't household names, to say that, listen, I'll get my Seth Meyers ticket tomorrow night, 2 shows. But also, I'm going to use some of my credits, some big names. But you know what I'm going to do also? I kind of like the sound of her or him. I'm going to go try someone out at the Comedy Bar or the Second City or wherever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's nothing quite like, and you would know this probably better than anyone, Bruce, but seeing comics before they become the massive stars that they are. And it's kind of like that in music as well. You supported a band at the Horseshoe, and next thing you know, they're playing the Scotiabank Arena. It's an opportunity for true comedy fans to go and explore, but also for comedy fans who I think, and this is one thing we try to tell everyone, and that's why we support Canadian comedy so much and feel so grateful to do it, which is, there are these big names, but it doesn't mean, and we just sort of had this talk with Nathan a little bit, doesn't mean that there aren't, comedians putting on this same type of show with the same amount of laughs who you've never heard of. So go and take those chances. And I encourage people who only flock to the big names to do that. And JFL, whether it's in Montreal or here, really, really allows people to do that. And it's like a really cool thing to give back to people.
Well, listen, I appreciate that. I think that the pass has allowed that. And the more we improve it, the more, we want it to be very generous. We want people to, hopefully come beyond the pass and realize the next time they come, maybe outside of 42, maybe they're doing Yuck Yucks, maybe they're doing the Comedy Bar, they've developed a bit more of an audience. It could be 50 more people, or it could be 5,000. Look, we felt the people think about the people that started in the past 7 years ago. Burr, Amy Schumer, pretty well all the big names of comedy today, some of which are selling out the Scotiabank Centre and obviously the Sony. Because what happens is 2 or 3 full audiences at the Queen E sampling someone that's great. Next time they come back with a new show, what's the best advertisement? The last show you did.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it grows through that, and you give them these bigger shows. Even it's weird. Like, I was thinking about this the other day, we started this show just over 4 years ago, and I think SiriusXM was the big cachet. It's probably not my name, but when we were to go to LA or New York, guys 4 years ago weren't even that huge, like Chris D'Elia or Theo Vaughn or guys like Jeremiah Watkins, and the only one I actually didn't get to was Rogan. And that's probably because he was already big. But I mean, Brian Callen, even I stay at Brian Callen's house. It's crazy to think what not only comedy has done for them, but also I think this combination of podcasting and comedy, and it's a really neat combo. And you guys sort of explore a lot of that stuff as well.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of what Comedy Con is as well. I mean, for people that are not, completely up to date on what we do here in Toronto. I mean, the festival's obviously called JFL 42. We have headliners at the Sony Centre where you get a ticket to those shows, and then you can buy a pass to access the 42. And depending on what you buy, you have X amount of passes, X amount of credits. And every time you see a show, you get an additional credit. In addition to that, we've added this fan event, which during the day you can go and hear your favorite comics be interviewed by people at the TIFF Lighthouse or at Second City. There'll be obviously cast readings. We did Letterkenny last year. And of course, podcasts, because that has become, quite obviously, in addition to social media, a fantastic, honestly, brand builder. And not just brand builder for one given artist that might be the host of that podcast, but the guests look at all Joe Rogan's friends. They're all now got a following. Think about it.
It's interesting you say that, Bruce, and Peter Anthony hanging out with us. I use that model, Joe Rogan's model, and I had one experience with him, and it maybe wasn't the best one, but I will use what he's done for his friends and for talented people as probably the greatest uncorporate move of all time. If you think about how corporations, and I've worked for one in the past, how they essentially, you have these non-compete rights, and you can only do one show on one station. You can, God forbid, you work for Rogers, you go to Bell or whatever. Rogan doesn't give a fuck about that stuff. And I love that. Rogan takes talented people full well knowing that he's going to send some people from his podcast to their podcast. And yet he's the king of the castle, and he does it with such humility and such pride that it's and it helps other people spread their wings and grow. And to be honest, whatever audience I have or don't have, I'm so grateful to be able to throw people to other places to discover. There's so much talent, and it's so neat to see that happen. Because if Rogan worked for a radio station, he wouldn't have been able to do that. To have people, if they worked for other radio stations, to say, "Hey, look how great they are. Go listen to them too." And I think it's a really cool thing.
I agree. I think that's really important. And listen, it's sort of that's absolutely the case with a lot of the podcasts out there. But also that's Joe. Joe, when I run into Joe at the Comedy Store, wherever I run into him at our festivals, the first thing he gets to is someone that I have to see. He's always promoting. Burr, similar thing. They're just promoting great people they've seen lately, and they have to do the festival. And here's where, here's his number or her number, and they love the art form, and they're very generous, good dudes.
Do you think that that's sort of an age and confidence thing for a lot of people?
Yeah, let's not for a minute put that aside. Absolutely,
we evolve. We get kinder, softer. We want to see people be successful.
100%. I agree. That's definitely a part of it. But and people over time get softer. But but still, it lends itself to that. And as you said, you don't have to go to war like Stern did to, do certain things or have certain guests on, because you bump into the culture and the business and the rules that some of, that you go up against that doesn't enable you to do that.
Well, it's very inspirational, really what it is, and I hope other people sort of practice the precedents that Rogan has set. And I know that I've sort of been one of those that used to be more protective and said, nah, I'm not going to be, because you know what, people will find you if you're talented enough anyway. So it should work out, and why not promote everybody else?
You guys are making me think I should start a podcast.
Well, yeah, and we'll promote it, but you got to be good at it. No. Peter Anthony's one of the best. Bruce, your story is really inspirational too, and it was nice that you complimented me as a business person. By the way, I just want to thank Monet 24 Karat Gold Jeweler. But you've been with this
the whole list?
Yeah, we got a list here.
I thought I saw Berry. I thought it was going to be BlackBerry, but no, it's
Coinberry. It's
sorry.
where you can get Bitcoin or Ethereum. Yeah. You've been with this for what, 33 decades? Like started off.
Well, I wish decades, because then I'd be really old. But years, yeah.
How many years?
Bruce, you were a driver. Right?
Yeah.
I've been
30. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, 33 years. I started off just coming out of university and got offered a gig to drive people because it was better paid than the other gig I had, which was putting up flyers for rock shows and comedy shows. So I did that in 86 and 87. And the great part of it was the first person that I ended up driving was Jerry Lewis, his dog,
wow,
his manager, and his manager's wife. And I remember that they all flew in first class, and his son flew economy.
Oh my God!
My dad would do the same.
What
and
the hell?
And then
Jerry's kid.
So basically, what happened is, so I drove him around, and at the same time, I had to drive some other people. He was my priority. Whenever he wanted to roll, I had to go pick him up and drop him off. And the other person I drove was Sandra Bernhardt.
Wow.
And Sandra was just popping. She was just the comic of the moment. And she'd come out of the movie that they did together, King of Comedy, the Scorsese film, fantastic Scorsese film. And they didn't like each other when they were filming. They did not get along. So every time I got in the car, Sandra would say, "How was that piece of shit? What, was he awful to you, like he was to me?" Or then I would get in the car to pick up Jerry, and Jerry's Jerry's manager's wife would say, "Sandra's very disrespectful to Jerry. He was so generous to her on the movie, and she has nothing but awful things to say about him." So that was my intro to the business.
And then, I mean, grown to now to being the president of JFL, and there's been some sort of management restructuring and everything, and a new group that came and bought it and stuff. Howie Mandel being a part of that. I guess I have so many questions almost on the business level, and we have a lot of listeners that love when we sort of approach this kind of stuff, because a lot of people are struggling or looking for extra things and trying to do it. I mean, how much of it was you right place, right time, you working your balls off to get where you are today, and then were you always business minded? And then you should never do this at the radio show. By the way, I asked 4 questions in a row, but also being a people person.
Well, listen, I think first and foremost, 100% right place, right moment. Because look, aside from the fact that I was just there early, never hurts to be in a business early and then hustle, and work your butt off, but. I was only the second English-speaking person in the company. So because the festival started in French only, by the time I got there, we were in our 4th year, and it was our 2nd year in English. So, not only was I in early, I spoke the language that they needed to expand into English. So, again, I was just an entry-level employee at that time. But, just by being around, by 88, so about 3 years in, someone said to me, we need a director of programming. Do you want to go and do some scouting around the States? So I got on a plane, went to Boston, and walked in and saw some of the great comics of today in a couple of rooms. And that was the beginning of a couple of decades of scouting all over the world. And our festival went from handful of theaters and nightclubs to this massive event. But also, comedy evolved. When I started, it was largely a nightclub business. There might have been 2 acts in the world that could sell out an arena. What are there today? 100. There wasn't even Roseanne or Cosby at that point. So there was no massive. There weren't many big comedies. But and then the whole business exploded. And listen, we've seen ups and downs over the years. But timing for me, timing for the festival. Being bilingual, which gave us 2 businesses to run, kind of, because they've sort of coexisted together. makes it a bit more interesting for the comics as well. A French comic will come in and see all these big American movie stars and Canadian movie stars, and get to mingle with stars from the other side of the globe. So I don't know if I answered all your questions, but I at least answered one and a half.
I asked way too many. That's totally my fault.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
I just want to jump in. When did it become? I know when I was growing up, like watching it on TV, as a lot of Canadian kids do and comedy fans before I even started doing comedy myself. But when did it become the thing where deals would be made for big stars or sitcoms? How did you guys get that part of the business, and why was it like? Why did Montreal become that?
Well, it's an interesting question. Again, we were just, first. We were the, what happened is that by, I think 87 was the first deal that was done. Or 88, I can't remember. But Lenny Clark got Lenny. They were looking for Roseanne. All right, they were looking for the male Roseanne. Excuse me. Unfortunately, it didn't last much more than half a season.
Neither did the second Roseanne.
Yeah. And then, I think Craig Ferguson got a deal. By the way, the first time Craig Ferguson came to the festival, he performed as a character called Bing Hitler. And a couple of people turned aside and said, "That not the right name for this industry, my friend." It's a funny act, but the wrong name. But so that was the start of it. Rowan Atkinson came and wanted to test out a nonverbal character that he wanted to see if people that didn't know who he was would laugh at it. Took the tape, sold Mr. Bean. It's probably worth $100 million since that day.
Unreal.
So there were some great success stories at the beginning. So the industry started to show up. And then all of a sudden, if you had 7 minutes and new faces, you could walk away with $500K. And 6 months later, you're a free agent. I mean, it was ridiculous.
It was a shopping spree almost for agents and managers and networks and
it's like the cannabis industry right now.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that's very funny. Well, listen, I remember when things turned when Chicken, a comedian by the name of Chicken, unfortunately the late Chicken,
I know
got $500K. People said this has to stop. He's got 4 minutes and $500K, and there's I think within 2 years you were lucky to walk out with $100,000, not at Just for Laughs, anywhere, that just people had to do a little bit more due diligence before handing off those deals. That being said, we had to pivot, evolve, and make sure we could help comics in other ways. Look, our attitude is this. It's very simple. If a young Canadian comic comes in from Saskatchewan, Toronto, wherever, and gains momentum, and instead of making $8,000, they can make $12,000 the next year. Well, that's an accomplishment as much as hitting the home run. It's just, can we help you move the ball forward? Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but hey, 2 club bookings to changing your life. We want to help on every level. We'd love it to be the changing your life, but as we all know, that doesn't happen every day, and not every act is built for that or is in the right place at the right time. But that's the goal of the festival. But now, look, we're just trying to feed the festival as many influential people as possible that can help the full field. Movie directors. There's a reason we do all the comedy awards and the panels, because we also want Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen and Jim Carrey walking around our festival watching people, because it's not necessarily the network executive, the studio executive that's going to help the next star. It will be Judd saying, "Oh, Bo Burnham, I never heard of this kid, but maybe he should write a song for my next movie." Again, I'm making this up because I don't know if Seth Rogen saw someone that he liked, but we want Seth in the room. We want Seth saying when he's casting the next movie, I want to book him or her, because the momentum for their career can come from any place. So of course, executives from every level of the business, but also showrunners, writers, stars that have influence. We want them seeing the best comics out there and do our best to put as many Canadian acts up there in the mix.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story, and you continue to do that, and it continues to be, obviously the biggest name in this country for JFL 42 and JFL over in Montreal. What's it like? Is it interesting how it is in the States, though? Because I've heard it's referred to as the Montreal Festival, and I've always been amazed by that, because do you know the reasons for that?
Well, look, here's the thing: it's just that some people just remember it to whatever is the most convenient, and they don't care. And look, I think think there was, when the Big Sick used us as sort of one of the storylines, the comedian trying to get to Montreal. I think they were worried about legalities of clearing Just for Laughs. I mean, I wish they had asked us, because we would have gladly cleared it. But listen, at the end of the day, I'm trying to get to Montreal is fine with us, because, you know.
That's where it's all going on.
And
anyway.
it's also fun, just like wherever I go, like if you're trying to get on at the club, say you're in Seattle or Boston or New York or wherever, you can always say it. Like, they're like, well, what have you done? You can always say, I've done Montreal. Then they're like, oh, okay, cool.
You don't even have to go on.
It like legitimizes you as a comedian almost. You're like, okay. They're like, okay, cool, great.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm glad that can be used to benefit.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what it's
cachet.
for.
It's currency. I mean,
Sure
and no question. You know what? We're gonna have to pass on. Are you in a rush to get out of here? We'll just tell Michael. Let's get him on Monday, because this too. I'm not kicking Bruce out of here. I have too many questions.
I don't want to kick Michael out of here, though.
No, he's only a sponsor. He might just pull. Don't worry. Okay, but this is really cool stuff, man. He's
not the vodka guy.
No,
don't piss off the vodka
He's
guy.
Einstein.
Or the wine guy. I don't want to piss either of those guys off.
He's the guy who go trade altcoins and cryptocurrency.
All right, okay.
You responsible for for a lot of careers. And you
well,
met
it's not just me. It's guys. End of the day, I don't just being Mr. Humble here. Look, it's a team. There's a team out there scouting. It's not me. It's us.
I love that. The team of you. It's a great team of you, and you have a team of scouts and all of that. But are people nervous around you often? Do you find because they're like, well, I want to get to Bruce. I don't want to fuck this up. I want him to be impressed by me. Do you sense that in people?
I don't think so. I don't try to make it hard on anyone if they, if it's a comic and wants to talk to me about something. If they approach it awkwardly, I'll try to make it easy. No, that's not my. If it's out there, I don't read it really well, and I do my best. Maybe not everyone agrees, but I try to make it as easy as humanly possible if someone wants to talk to me about the festival. I mean, look, I never can promise I'm going to book someone, nor do I want to interfere with an amazing team I have. So I do my best to, hand the ball to the team, and so they can do a much better job than I would.
Does it seem like I'm kissing ass to try and get that moderating thing in the Comic Con? Because that's what I was doing my best.
That's the goal. Okay, now I know. All right, good.
I was doing my best at that. I was just really blowing a lot of smoke up Bruce's ass. And
exactly.
But Todd, you've seen enough comedy too. Like just from doing this show, like you start to develop your what you would view as good comedy, right? So you start to it's refined. Like a wine aficionado.
Yes.
So I'm sure like Bruce, you know what you like and what you don't like at this point. So
yeah, but you know what? It's also to thank you for saying that. I mean, look, here's the thing. Also, the one thing that I think is imperative for me is that, and I realized this when I was falling asleep in a show in Edinburgh at the festival there. I don't know, 15 years ago. I said, you know what? When I'm not pumped to be in this seat. What a complete waste of opportunity. What a unfortunate situation for the act sitting in the room. I realized I was just doing it because I felt I had to, and I just realized I better get someone in this room that is going to eat this up versus me going through the motions. And I realized at that point there were two things that were really important, is that obviously I've got to energize my staff, and and if you're going to book an event, let's just say Toronto 42 here, which has got a younger demographic than Montreal to a degree. Well, it better damn well be booked by the age group that attends it, and not someone holding on for because they just want to be a part of everything. That's really key. You got to put the right scouts, the right execs in a room that understand the audience we're trying to entertain. And that's crucial, and that's all about
not micromanaging.
Well, it's not micromanaging. Yeah. It's also casting right. So saying, how do we get the smartest people that are going to see trends coming, see a voice that might be yet not too refined on stage, but they're going to see something that's special, and then we're going to go out there and try to cultivate it so that person can come to the festival and and do really well and hopefully advance their career. So that's it, man. It's pretty simple. It's not micromanaging for sure, and it's going out there and putting great people in the job. And listen, we're very proud of some of the people that came out of the JFL ranks in terms of execs. I can go on, but with Robbie Praw running Netflix comedy worldwide, I mean, he was my director of programming 3 years ago, and when he got the job, he wasn't ready, and he was not. But I just decided that I was going to go to the smartest person in the room that had an opinion, that had a point of view, and let him refine the rough edges. And there were a couple, because I just said, I know that he knows how to get us where do we have to get to in terms of a programming point of view. He then developed a business point of view as well, so he was really a well-rounded exec. And listen, hats off to Netflix. For so many years, Comedy Centrals of the world, HBOs, that just go and hire a safe senior exec out of New York or LA. No, Netflix said the best young comedy mind is sitting in Montreal, overseeing all those festivals. We're going to go get him. So they were smart because they were right. I lost a great person, but let me tell you, he had great people behind him, and now we're in fantastic hands by all the people that worked for Robbie.
You had to do a counter offer against Netflix. That's not a good position to be in.
Well, you know what? Listen, because I always have to, I never stop. Like when I get someone, walks in my office and says, well, I got to leave. I'll always negotiate. He knew I was going to try to. He goes, and just don't even try.
Not even for leverage on his end, or they couldn't even match.
No,
couldn't even come close.
No, but here's the thing about I get really speak to his negotiation because that's his business.
Sure.
Netflix, when they want something,
they
just go and get it.
Sure, they
and
do.
he just looked at me and said, "You can't counter for two reasons. I'm going." And you'll, and I'm going.
Sounds like you got a whack load of options.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When are we taking JFL public? Okay.
So anyway, that was. He's doing a great job, and we work with Netflix. We shot 32 half-hour specials in 6 days this summer, 3 languages. So Robbie's been a real ally since, and 4 of those comics were Canadians. We're shooting 3 hours here for Crave, trying to get as many Canadians in front of the camera as possible.
I guess that's sort of the next evolution of currency for comics. Whether as you did the festival in Montreal, and now it's like you get the Netflix, or you get the special, you get the Crave, and that's a big thing, and everyone's kind of vying and hoping for that. I got to ask you honestly, Bruce, if you don't mind. Because, and don't get me wrong, I love stand-up comedy on Netflix and stuff, but it also, for me, takes away from stand-up comedy in the clubs a little bit because I don't think it truly translates well. And I mean that mostly because of what we do to ourselves, meaning you're lying on a couch, you're looking at your phone, you're not fully into it, you're talking to your wife while, you're making the dinner, like all these kind of things. And when you're comedy, like, you're sort of, it's stage. It's a theater show. Like you're forced to look at the action. And that's to me my biggest love of comedy, because that's rare. Even at a sporting event, you can have a conversation with your buddy the whole time. Do you ever worry that sometimes people will only look at it that way and not realize how important it is to still see it live?
Well, you know what? The funny thing is when we'll see what happens because, let's be clear. Netflix has the 15-minute special coming up. They have the 30-minute special. They have the hours. You never know when there's just too much comedy out there. But at present, it just looks like the more comedy that goes out there, especially if it's good, builds audiences. Now, do I agree with you that the live experience is better? Of course, you're right. I agree. But I think that what Netflix has done for careers worldwide now is they've taken them from a comedy club to an arena in a lot of cases. At minimum, they're helping them build an audience around the world. And listen, let's hope they book more and more Canadians because, there's a chance for Canadian acts to get that valuable exposure outside of this country. I mean, listen, I have to be honest. I think Bell and CBC are doing more good work in the comedy space in the last 5 years, or more comedies that are actually getting an audience and getting renewed. But you can't compete with you can't compete with the exposure that those platforms give. Mm-hmm. I think to be quite honest, you need both. You need a really strong homegrown comedy situation, which I believe we have, and for the first time ever, really. Other than a couple lucky comics that got a break in the U.S., there's platforms out there, and there are more to come, that are helping Canadians hopefully develop an audience outside of the country of Canada.
The one thing I was going to add to that was just, I think Netflix and the exposure, it's forcing the hand of creativity and evolving comedy faster because it's making comedians need to come up with more content and more jokes, more shows, more writing. Whereas before, a guy could tour around the country with his hour. Maybe he never got it televised. Maybe he never even recorded it and just lived on that hour for a decade. And now,
that's a good point.
Not so much anymore because you have to get stuff out there. You're forced to get content out. So you're forced to evolve faster as a comic, as an artist. So you're writing more and you're trying stuff and you're recording stuff. Then you're moving on from it. So that's really
is that
a great
sometimes
thing too.
a confliction for comics? I never thought about that. Where maybe I have, because I know one comic who we did a thing at the Laugh Factory, and it was something that I had the ability to put out, and he said, "I'd rather you not, because it gets my material out there." Do comics conflict about that? Going, oh, my material gets out there, but yeah, now we got to work on more stuff. Is that sort of like?
But it forces your hand, doesn't it?
I
if
see.
it's recorded, and if it's out there, you can't do a theater tour the next year and do the same hour that someone bought a ticket for you the year before. He's doing the same stuff. You have to evolve. You have to write.
Well, you have to evolve, and you also, I think, you have to pick the time when you take the offer that fits.
Yes.
Because when you're going to sell it, or if you're going to do 7 minutes, and Netflix is going to say, "Oh, well, you can't use that 7 minutes in your hour." Well, got to make sure that 7 minutes is worth it, which is more pressure on us, to be quite honest with you, because the international rights now are worth so much more than they were 5 years ago. But that's okay. We're just continuing to try to figure out our business in the best way possible. And look, this summer was our biggest year ever in Montreal when it comes to production. Not only do we have all the Netflix, we did Kevin Hart, some of that stuff I think you'll hear on one of your channels now, that Kevin's got his own channels.
Awesome.
And then what I just was watching on the plane on the way over here, I was watching the 6th episode of 6 hours for Amazon Prime. We're doing, it's called The First 5 Minutes, and it's a Amazon series following new faces, largely from the U.S. Hopefully, if we get renewed, we can do Canada as well. From New York and L.A., trying to get on a showcase to be seen for Montreal, trying to get booked for Montreal for new faces, and then what happens to them when they make it to the festival this past July. And it's pretty amazing.
That sounds cool,
really excited.
Well, I would imagine you see a lot of the nerves and the anxiety and the pressure.
Yeah, for
Well, and you know what? It also just opened my eyes to something I guess I should have registered more clearly. But look, you're looking at it. This young, well, it's not young anymore. A guy in his 30s. He's funny, and he's got 3 children. And every time he's got a beautiful wife. And every time he leaves his apartment to go on the road for a dream that isn't easy, he sort of says, "Is it worth it?" And he's up for new faces. So it could be a game changer for him. Then he gets it. Then he has to do well on new faces. That's pressure. And, not that I didn't know that the New Faces was a pressurizing situation, but then you look and decide, it's one thing to be a 19-year-old, comedian living at home. You don't have, much exposure expense-wise, but you're in your 30s. Your family cries, your kids cry every time you walk out the door. Man, you better be making the right decision. The pressure to convert on that is intense.
Yeah,
And
he's got to have a real
not
tight
making
seven.
and he's not making a huge living. He's holding on. This is a game changer opportunity. And I realized, oh my God, we got to be, it was an eye opener for me to see.
I almost
it
wonder
that
why if that's
humanely.
another reason why comics tend to make it a little bit later in life too. Is their dream is sort of fading, and that moment not to be compelling and engaging, and like to take advantage of every second you have. I recall when Bert Kreischer was on my show once in L.A. and I joked with him about, why you do my show? You got your own show. He goes, I'm gonna take your 4 listeners. I don't give a shit. Like he just brought it. He just brought. And these guys bring it. I remember also what Jamie Masada said when I spoke to him from the Laugh Factory, and he was telling me, there's only so many ever at the top if you think of comedy. Right. There's only, in any other profession, there's even athletes, there's 600-700 in a league. There's not 600-700 of the top comics making that kind of money. Right. And it's really cool to follow that, to see, to chase that big dream and knowing that it is in sight, and you guys help make that for people. It's like, honest,
yeah,
man.
Well, listen, it actually loaded the deck of realizing our responsibility, and made me want to, even more pressure to not blow it, because and it's really hard because you can't book everyone.
Yeah.
And you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to miss someone that's better than the person you booked. You just got to do the best you can. I'm curious to see what you all think when you see the series. It's coming out in December. And
everyone has Amazon Prime now, so
yeah,
right? It's on Amazon Prime. You said,
yeah.
great.
Bruce Hills is with us. JFL 42 is in town, JFL42.com. Blair, what do we have? A few more minutes here? 2 more minutes. I got to thank sponsors for sure. Dude, I don't know how to wrap it up other than the fact that I hope you get back here, man. I'm really in admiration of everything you've accomplished for Canadian comedians, for every comedian, and as a business, and something that sort of, as Peter knows, we do a lot of business stuff on the side and everything, investing and everything. You meet people who mean something to you and always are compelling and engaging. You've done that, man. Thank you.
Well, listen, thank you very much. It's very kind. It was nice to talk to both of you.
Absolutely.
Did I do too much ass kissing for the moderation job? Like,
just enough.
I thought so. Oh, just okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure. I think
You still got to give him a bottle of vodka.
And when I went over that's how many people are sending you stuff? That's what I would do if I was a comic who was like kind of on the verge.
But could you put some gluten back in the vodka?
You could just dip it in bread. Okay. Or the bread dip that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks to Bruce. Please go and follow him as well at Bruce Hills, president of Just for Laughs, and please JFL42.com for all your information. Some massive acts in town. I think you know them all because we've been talking about them.
The Todd Shapiro Show.
You are the greatest hero in American history.
SiriusXM Canada Laughs Channel 168.